If I could please have the panelists, their esteemed and distinguished panelists, please come on up.
All right.
We have some new friends and some friends we've had for a while joining us. All right. We're going to stay right on track. We've got our last session to the day for the day. Please.
Thank you.
They changed.
Yeah, we are. We're missing.
Yep, there we go.
There we are.
My notebook is over
Fashionably
there.
late.
Okay, I'm gonna go grab it. Just
Okay, we're good to go. Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Shabri Lakhani, Chief Revenue Officer at ScreenCloud. Hopefully, you've had a chance to come and meet us, but we are a digital signage platform serving over 10,000 customers from the likes of Coca-Cola, Mars, OpenAI. And we really help them solve a fundamental challenge, which is how do they use and transform screens in the workplace into a really powerful communications tool? And some of our customers use ScreenCloud to reach their workforce where the majority of their workforce is frontline. We heard from the ladies at MGM yesterday that two-thirds of their workforce don't actually have access to email. So it's about reaching your employees in warehouses, factories, retail, hospitals, branches, who are really disconnected from traditional corporate channels. No app, no laptop, no email, no Microsoft Teams, no Slack. But actually, they're the ones that are the heart of our businesses, and often they're the ones that need information most urgently. So I'm fortunate enough that I get to speak to a lot of comms leaders like you. And what strikes me is that the role has significantly evolved in the last few years. The scope has expanded, and you're no longer just about crafting the right message. It's about designing the entire employee experience. You're navigating questions about equity. How do we make sure the frontline feels just as connected as your desk employees? You're dealing with the paradox of needing to communicate more whilst employees are also experiencing fatigue and drowning in digital noise. And so you're asking to also prove the impact, not just engagement scores, but how do you drive real business outcomes as well? So I'm delighted to be joined by a phenomenal panel today and be having this conversation with leaders who are going through this right now, day in, day out. And we have David from Patagonia, and we have Mary from Variobank, we have Ben from NVIDIA, Kim from Centene, and Angela from Patelco. So we're going to be spending the next 40 minutes or so digging into this evolution and what this actually really means and how you're all adapting. So we'll start with the first question, the kind of big picture shift. How has the scope of internal communications expanded beyond just messaging in your org? And what are you being asked to own today that wasn't on your plate 3 years ago? And we'll start with you, Ben.
Sure thing. The catch box. I think there's a couple of things for me on this. Firstly, I think we're seeing the rise of the comms generalist again. I think I'm seeing fewer highly specialized internal comms people and more folks with a broader base of knowledge. Indeed, like moving just from internal comms into dipping into external comms as well. And that's it's one of the things that has broadened for us over the last 3-4 years, which is a move into employee social, right? Traditionally not seen as an internal communications discipline. It's our team that runs the the NVIDIA Life account externally on the blog and on Instagram. I've also seen, internal comms taking hold of different things at different times. So previously, I was in an internal comms team that was responsible for recognition, right? Again, traditionally seen as an HR sort of discipline. But recognition is really more about communication than it is about pure play HR. And then I guess the The third thing I've seen is even broadening out into things like foundations and charity support as well, and that's sitting within internal comms. So rise of the generalist, and then bringing in things where appropriate, where it makes sense, that are adjacent to internal communications, and where engagement and comms is, the critical success factor to that.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. What about you, Mary? The cube's coming over to your way.
This is the sharing box. All right. Yeah, I echo everything that Ben said. I think absolutely I'm seeing the trend moving towards the generalist. I think as organizations run flatter, as they tend to, and again, as comms begins to be seen as really the glue that kind of keeps an organization functioning, I think people are recognizing that there really is no real differentiator between external and internal, because anything internal can be external. I mean, we've seen it throughout the pandemic as people move into remote work. That blurring between the personal and professional is, it is only going to get even, more just blurry. The other piece is, I think, just specifically for me, 3 years ago, I think I saw myself as kind of like the editor-in-chief. I was kind of setting the tone and the voice of my organization. What does internal comms look like? How do we show up? How do we establish our voice? How do we communicate? Now I see myself really as, like an orchestrator, and the person who sets the environment for work to be done. So that means mapping communications to the flow of work, making sure that I am really looking at ways to enable communications and integrating it and embedding it into business practices, and helping leaders think through that. And so a little bit of it is like, I am the kind of conductor, and I'm making sure that people understand that comms needs to come early, and it needs to be thoughtful about, like throughout the entire process, because so much of communications is about change in today's business.
Yeah, absolutely. David, what about you?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you both, and I have a similar reflection. I think we have come so far as internal comms. I remember, I'm going to age myself, but I remember starting in internal comms 15 years ago, and it was about sending a weekly newsletter. And then if you could organize a Christmas party, you would have done a great job. I think now I feel like we're really part of helping businesses to succeed in whatever that means for them. For a lot of companies, that means that we're there to help them make profit by helping people to work more effectively or faster or more clear or more engaged. And that means that I think me and Tessa find ourselves in executive rooms talking with our CEO about some really tricky things. And I think there's a real acknowledgement from him, but also I think at other companies, that we are a function that can really provide strategic direction that ultimately helps companies to succeed. I think the pandemic just accelerated that even more. And based on the talent in this room, I'm just excited to see where it goes next from here.
Yeah, I love that. And I think lots of people in this room, from conversations I have, would agree. It kind of started as that you're responsible for the newsletter and you have to deal with any kind of fallout from that. And it's become so much more. Kim, what about you?
I would say a little bit differently from what you two said. I think for Centene, we have definitely we've seen more of a separation, maybe in terms of the communications. Our team has grown exponentially. It's been, each of the teams are with internal, external, video, the creative team, like where we were smaller, now we all really have more specialized teams. But in the space where I found more of a change that I didn't foresee at all was in AI enablement. And for myself, it's kind of weird because maybe 2 years ago at this conference in Boston was like my first time coming to this conference, and like I started hearing, folks talking about AI, and I was like, I need to pay attention to this. And I went back, to my office, and we started like bringing this up and talking about it and how can we utilize it, in our space. And somehow I became the AI guru, and my boss or our chief communication officer like tasked me with becoming the, kind of the lead to upskill our team and figure out how can communications use it to, help make our jobs easier. And so we created a task force to try to figure out like what can we do. There's like 5 or 6 people, like what kind of prompts, what can we do to help make, our roles easier. And we've come so far in just that short amount of time. And like maybe we did a survey like as soon as we started, where we had like maybe 50% of folks that were like had used AI on a regular basis. 30% were like, oh, I'm neutral, how can it help me? 20% or whatever. I don't know if my math is right there. The other percent was like, is it going to take my job a little, reluctant or whatever? And I need to retake it now that we've done the like AI essentials trainings. We've had folks come in and like teach people what to do with it. And like, I'm like, how did this transform to, to us being communicators to this whole new like segment of work that we're doing? So it's just really strange. I never even foresaw that.
Well, it's amazing you're seeing it have that impact. And I know yesterday there was some conversation in the room about AI and how is it actually changing the practice of internal comms, whether it's helping you create content or analyze engagement or advise leadership. And so I know, Ben, you had some ideas to share around how NVIDIA are using AI for internal comms.
Yeah, sure. Here's the thing. I think AI from an internal comms perspective broadly breaks down into 2 parts. First, there's how can I or how can the team use AI to be more effective and efficient in what we do? Right? That's kind of where I see most experimentation going on now. It's things, I've heard conversations going on around the room about using it for brainstorming and for writing and for image generation and even now for video creation, analytics and analysis, all those sorts of things. It's how are we using AI to make our life easier? Because I don't think I've ever encountered an internal comms team that went, you know what, we're really resource rich, aren't we here? This is great. Never seen that. And then I think the second part is much more nascent. And that is how can we use AI to help our employees, to inform and inspire them?
Yeah.
And we're much, much earlier in that. We're mostly still at the AI assistant phase. For companies that have deployed it, it's, you ask it a question and it's like a smarter search, right? It gives you similar to what you get from Gemini when you search on Google. That's what I see most often. But, agentic AI is not far away, and that's the AI being able to do things on your behalf. So you just tell it to, hey, can you book me Friday off? Or can you book me a meeting room for that meeting I've got at 3 p.m.? And it has enough information about you and enough context that it can actually take action on your behalf across the multitude of systems that we have. And I think that's where we should be thinking and putting our efforts. I think we'll look back on chatbots in 5 years and go, oh, how quaint. Like, that's super cute. We used to like have a little chat button. We'd have a little conversation with it. So I think from an internal comms perspective, I'm going to talk some more about this tomorrow, bonus session. It is really, where do we need to be now? And where do we need to be looking so that we're ready to take advantage of when agentic AI really becomes a thing? And then there's one past agentic AI. There's like advisor AI, which is much more proactive. And we're way away from that yet. But certainly having a tool that can access Workday, access ServiceNow, pop in and add your holiday onto the spreadsheet that for some reason you still maintain like separately to Workday, even though all the information's in Workday. That's where I think we'll see a big change.
Okay, thank you. I want to shift to another practical challenge. So we recently ran a survey of frontline workers. We had 800 respondents, and the results were striking. And there's a copy at our booth if you'd like to grab one. But there was a couple of stats that I wanted to share that really stood out. So the first is that 72% of frontline workers don't understand company strategy. 27% of them think that they get conflicting messaging from HQ versus local. And this one is probably my favorite because it's the most surprising. But on average, it takes 4.5 days for critical information to reach frontline teams. And so what we can see is this frontline workforce is really getting left behind in communications and communication strategies. So what I wanted to talk about was, how do you ensure information equity between your desk and frontline workers? And Angela, we were having a conversation yesterday about your branches. So I'd love to get your insights on this.
Yes. And is this working? Okay. And I wish I could say that there's a magic solution for reaching frontline workers, but ever since I've been in comms, we've been talking about it. So I don't think that there ever is going to be a magic solution. And I've worked with different front lines. And right now I work at a credit union. We work with many different front lines, right? In many different regions. And so I think it's taking them into consideration and really going out and being in their world. And I know that that takes some work and that takes some time. But I think it's really worth it. I don't remember if it was Kim or Mindy, someone pointed out this morning, if you ask them how they want to receive information, they'll say email, but then they say they don't read the email. So you can't just give them a survey, right? And you can't just say, how do you want to receive information? It's really going out and sitting in their world. What does their world look like? You're going to notice things that probably they might not notice. A lot of our branches, some of them have very decorated bulletin boards still. So I know that they would like a poster, but not all of them. So there's not a one size fits all. And then also when you're out there, you're talking to them, they talk very different than our people at corporate. I love my HR team, but man, they should not be talking to people. Just sorry, I have to kind of, translate for them, take out the jargon, take out all of that. Use AI and take it out. Just take it all out, because as soon as they start hearing that jargon and things, they tune out, right? They're just not in it. And then the plus side of that is when you're out there talking to them, those are your people that are meeting the mission, right? They are there on the front lines with your customers. They have the best stories. They have the best content that you can then come back and tell. So that's the plus side of coming back. So, and I wish I could say there's a one size fit all, but this was also a reminder to me that I need to get out and meet, go take some visits.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love for you to add your.
This might sound controversial, but maybe let's wake up the room. I don't think it's that difficult. I really do not. I think you're right. I think spending time with your frontline team members and understanding kind of their ecosystem and their tonality. And then I just think it's flexing that muscle on every comms plan you build. I think once you understand that, you simply just have to do it. I'm not saying that we get it right at Patagonia each time, but I think we've made a lot of progress when building internal comm strategies to immediately say, how do we translate this? And one example for us in our warehouse is that this team does daily shift huddles. Every morning they have 10 minutes. So do we work with all the managers every morning to say, here's 3 things that we want you to mention? And whenever we work on any type of internal communications, that is part of our cadence. So I think once you get into that groove, it's just simply doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads us on really nicely to the next question. And yesterday there was an amazing workshop for those of you who are here on building a multi-channel communication strategy. So shout out to the ladies from MGM. And one of the things that we hear is that with a multi-channel and increased channels, it could mean more noise. And so I know something that internal comms leaders are dealing with is the risk of burnout, and how do you balance that with keeping people informed whilst having still the responsibility to protect their attention and well-being. So Kim, we'll come to you on your thoughts on that.
I actually wrote something down because I didn't want to. But one of the things that we have tried to be very cautious about is the overload and shifting kind of from that volume to more value-based communications and making sure that we're not just, throwing things out there just for the sake of it. But in addition to being intentional and figuring out like what do we need to make sure that they truly need to know, we've tried to protect it, some of that also in terms of well-being by making sure that we just carve out time for people to really have like their thoughts together. So one of the things that we worked with our HR or people teams for is creating these like no meeting days.
Yeah.
And communicating that like intentionally with like it's part of our calendar. Like when we like one of the most read posts every year is our holidays and our no meeting days. And we started with doing like them quarterly. So we had like 4 every year and we're up to like 6. And we communicate them not just as, like time on your calendar, but it's time to reflect, time for personal development, time for like they're protected. Like we ask teams to like leaders to go ahead and put them on your Outlook calendar so that they're blocked off and other people don't try to invade and take that space. We communicate them in our company-wide channels on our that we send out our newsletters so that people maintain, reminders as those days come up, and just trying to make sure that they stay cognizant and make sure that you have the brain space and not just, to really kind of make sure that mental health and well-being is protected.
Well, I can empathize with that. I personally love a no meeting day. And my team are here, no offense. So Angela, what would you add to that?
I would add to that. I heard you say kind of what they really need to know, because of course everyone and leaders and everything, they're it's the most important thing. It needs to go out. It needs to go out right now. So when you have that multi-channel strategy set up, or just kind of the planning before, you can help direct people. We have something called What's New Wednesday. It's been around for everybody. Everybody knows it's What's New Wednesday, right? And it's operational updates. And so we'll get requests on a Thursday. Can you send this out? Because they missed What's New Wednesday, right? And so can we save this for the next week? How can we work with you to, funnel this through that channel so that we're not sending out additional emails? So I think standing up your strategy with that multi-channel, I love that presentation yesterday. It's so good. But standing that up and kind of letting people know, now people know to come to us. We're going to have all team updates on Thursdays. We're going to have What's New Wednesdays. We're going to have a monthly newsletter. So now they kind of know, okay, can I get into that? And then that way we're bundling a few communications instead of just sending a bunch of one-offs. Also really talking to leaders. I love the cybersecurity because we have a new cybersecurity leader, and he likes to come and say, because at his old company, he would put together a memo and they'd send it out via email. And so he's like, let's do this. And I'm like, okay, let's look for a different way to do this. So I love your example, but also we're doing it through digital signs. We're doing other things, just tips and behaviors, because that's what people really need to do. So instead of sending out an email, so I think it's that way, that too, just talking with them about their intentions and their why. And then I guess we're just kind of the gatekeepers, right? For how things go out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to move to the challenge of measurement. There was a great example yesterday from the campaign, the texting campaign they ran, and how they measured that and the impact of that. But as we know, leadership care about business outcomes, not just open rates from newsletters and emails. So I wanted each of you to share one metric or impact story that really got executive attention, and how did that tie back to business outcomes? Do you want to go first?
It's such a holy grail.
I know.
I said at lunch earlier, it's like I find click rates and open rates so boring. I think they say so little. No, I love all the partners here, but I think people opening an email, and clicking on it, maybe time spent is maybe a little bit more interesting because it at least gives you an idea that they've absorbed it. But I find much more meaning either in qualitative feedback from employees or quantitative by influencing the listening strategy that our HR team has at Patagonia. One of the most meaningful metrics for me was when I worked at Kraft Heinz and I was leading the transformation, new CEO, new purpose, new org model, everything. And we had one question that we would measure every quarter, which was, I understand how my job and how my day-to-day links back to the purpose of this company. And then when I started it, it was at like an all-time low. And when we finished, and I think internal comms did play a big role, I think it was at like 70% of people saying, yes, I see that. And so I think those kind of measurements through listening, I find it more interesting than a click rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim, what's your impact story? Everyone's trying to avoid this question.
I'll take it. Okay, so what's interesting is that currently I'm at a like 300, 400 person startup. But before that, I was at the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco where, we had way more resources. So like, I guess it's like, I didn't think I had a lot of resources then, but then I'm like, oh my gosh. And I used to really care about data. It's like, what's the click rate? What's the what's the analytics? Like, what's the best tools? What's the, and Preston knows. Preston knows. We have to. And now that I'm at a startup, we are so lean. We just need to get things done, and we're small, and so we shouldn't have a ton of bureaucracy or a ton of like kind of extra work. We just don't have time to afford that. So for us as a lean startup, we don't have all the tools. We'd like to get there, but it's a nice to have. But the metric that matters the most to us is velocity. And it is the lag time between strategy and implementation, because at a startup that matters more than anything. And that's, I'm sure, true of any organization. It's just, we just don't have the buffer. So it's like, I think that's really what we think about, because I don't really care that 100 people clicked on an email. I care that what we say in an all hands about a pivot in strategy gets translated into product, into engineering, into marketing, and it happens quickly. So that's the metric that matters.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Angela?
I know that was a good one. I don't know.
You can say open rate.
I love open rates. I think one of the things that we've started doing is you were talking about communicators taking on extra roles. One of the things that we've been asked to take on is listening strategy. And so building out a really robust listening strategy using Qualtrics, our engagement survey vendor, looking across moments that matter, different dashboards, seeing what people are asking our bot, our AI bot, what people are saying in focus groups. So kind of taking all of those, and we've started building out a dashboard and just telling a story. And so being able to not just take one click rate or what people are doing here or what people are doing here, but looking across the board and how is that affecting retention? How is it affecting engagement? How is it affecting different things? And then being able to tell a story to leadership of what that looks like and how communications helps influence it. We're still building out our dashboard. If anybody has any suggestions, I'm open to them. We'd love to hear about them. I've been talking to Preston about this for years. But I think just that holistic view, and the faster that we can get those results in hand is the faster that we can pivot and respond to it.
Love that. Yeah, I'm sure there's people here that will have some suggestions for the dashboard. Ben?
I'm going to disagree with pretty much the entirety of the panel on this one, I think. I don't see open rates, click rates, read rates as boring. I see them as foundational. Here's why. What I do know is a lot of what we do is not dissimilar to a marketing funnel, right? And like a marketing funnel, we want to get as much in at the top of that funnel, right? So clicks, reads, unique views, all those things, they're an indication of the top of the funnel. And to me, it's important because while I might not be able to directly attribute someone reading this to an action some of the time. What I can do, as our purpose is to inform and inspire employees at its highest level. I know that if somebody clicks, somebody has a unique view on something, right? My chance of informing and inspiring them is not zero. If they don't click on it, then my chance of informing and inspiring them is zero. And in my book, not zero is a better foundational place to start than zero. Now, it's foundational, right? You then need to build a whole raft of qualitative and quantitative measures around it as well. We want a practical tip. One of the things I really enjoy from a comms perspective is enduring focus groups. Get people to sign up. Send an email out to say, hey, have you got an opinion on something? Like, we've got 80% engineers in our business. They've all got opinions on things, right? You can sign up and we'll send you little, like, short 1-minute surveys from time to time. The purpose for that is it neatly skips around any accusation of survey fatigue. Like, these people that have signed up, they want to give you, like, your opinion, their opinion to you all the time. That's a really useful practical. It's a proper pulse. Like, when we talk about pulses a lot of the time now, we talk about these big surveys that go to the whole company and take weeks or months to do and deliver and analyze and feedback and cascade. That's a proper pulse. I want to just go out and test the water on this question. And then pulses are good as well. Pulses with strategy are good. Like, I've seen a lot of organizations do pulses on whatever the flavor of the month is, or not come back and benchmark and repulse on the same thing sometimes. That to me, becomes a very tactical exercise, not a strategic one.
I don't think it was that controversial. I liked it.
I shall try harder.
Kim, do you want to bring us home?
I think for Centene, I think that we in our comms group, we are really, tapping the surface at our metrics. We're really trying to understand, like, we've had our communications team is, like I talked about, like, we're really growing and trying to get our spaces in terms of all the different areas and trying to figure out, like, what that looks like. What is that, illustrious metric that we're really going for? So actually my team is, like, building out these dashboards now, but it's at such a infancy in its stage that I don't even know what to say, like what the sweet spot is for us. But next year I'll have a better answer.
Good. Same time, same place next year. Okay, well, look, thank you so much to our panelists for sharing such honest and practical insights. And I think what's really clear is that internal comms isn't just content, it is really critical infrastructure, and the whole organization feels it. As we've talked about, the role has fundamentally evolved over the last few years. And I think what's really exciting is that all of you are playing such a huge part in shaping what comes next. So a big thank you and round of applause to our panelists. And I think we might have a few minutes for some questions. Preston might tell me otherwise. Flag.
Yeah. I've been wanting to ask this all day, and David, you brought up the topic, so I'm going for it. You talked about how low the rates were for people feeling connected to the strategy, their role, how it ladders up. And I'd love to know how anybody does that well, because every job I've ever been, we've tried to do that, getting it down to how does it translate to each individual. I've never seen how that works well. And half the time I think, do they actually really care? Or do they just want to know that their job is important in the sphere that they live in, that their manager thinks what they're doing is important? Kind of a maybe controversial question, but if you did so well, did it matter? How'd you do it?
Yeah. I'm gonna really sound like I'm anti creates an email. It's funny because when you ask internal comms people, like, what's the number one platform, they will often say email. I think it's people.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time today, but also at the other company, mobilizing people. And so I'll give you an example of what we're doing at Patagonia today, and then which I took from the other companies. Like, we have 3 groups. We have our change leadership team. Those are senior directors and above. We meet with them every month and we workshop some really difficult things like, hey, we have to cut some benefits. How do you think I should communicate this to our team members? And they lean in. Then we have our leadership forum, which are our directors and above. I meet with those people every month as well. And I ask them to help me with cascading things. Like, I need you to bring this back to your team, to your point, in a way that makes sense to them. Here's what I would say. Here's an example of what that could look like. And then we have the manager's playbook. So every people manager gets an update from the team every month saying, here's 5 really important things that I need you to bring home to your teams. So what I did at Kraft Heinz as well is, like, I really worked very hard with our leaders to help them personalize content in a way that would make sense for their team, ultimately helping them to see their role in some really lofty, larger strategic purpose statements. It takes training, it takes patience, it takes a lot of talking with your leadership to get them to that point. But I think if you do it consistently, I think they feel really compelled to help, and I really think that's where the biggest unlock sits. Yeah.
I think that's what I was saying. Like, we did have a person and that person moved to a different team. And so we have a team member who's kind of taken on that role, and she does use like Google Analytics and pull stuff. And so she is creating like this foundational dashboard. And this is in our first year, like as a complete team. And she is like, this has to roll out to like all of the, all the executive leadership team, where she's showing them all of these different metrics. And it's a whole lot of stuff that she's like probably using AI to help her pull it all together to look like a cohesive thing. But she feels like it's not adequate because she's like, I'm kind of like learning as I go along. I don't really know that I know I'm doing the best at pulling it all together.
I'll just make it quick. I used to, I don't anymore, but I'm a writer who likes math, so I really love being in spreadsheets. So yes, it's me.
So we're a pretty big business. We do not have an analyst. Would I like one in a perfect world? Yeah, really would. But in terms of where would I deploy extra resource right now, that one would be well down the list. We expect each member of the team to compile data. We do a monthly report, right? And I think if you don't do a monthly report on internal comms and what you're doing and send that round to your C-suite, you're missing a trick. Because sure as heck, HR are doing that, marketing are doing that, finance are doing that. Like, it's an expected part, and it shows that we as a discipline are professional and thoughtful and are approaching this in a way that like looks at business impact. Okay? And then the second thing on this would be, I think there are advantages to not, because it means each member of the team really needs to understand their data. I do worry that if it becomes one person's job, then people don't dig into the data anymore. They don't make those serendipitous kind of leaps of, hey, I saw this and this. Wonder if I went and recut some of this data over here. Like, I think it's good for a team, especially a small one, to know the impact that it's having and to be able to compile and look at its, the data for what they're responsible for.
As the chair, I want to take one comment. Couple of quick points, if I could. So first, anybody have an HR and people analytics team? I know y'all do. Yeah. Why aren't they helping with measurement? Yeah. But the truth is, we know why they're not making offers, because we only measure as human beings what makes us look good, right? So it's not their scope, because they're not measured by that. So that's the awkward conversation to have with HR leadership. We've been talking about the weird relationship between comms and, that's a perfect example of what's not happening. That's a big opportunity space. They have the technology, they have the people power, they definitely have the skills and capabilities. It's just not happening, right? And so that's just one quick point. I'm seeing a lot of nods on that. What's that? Exactly. So lots of examples of that. We have a Power BI team that sits at, the challenge is, having done that a bunch of times, is you need to go to them with a very clear scope, right? Because they're not going to know, what you're doing. Yeah. Sometimes it's as basic as I mentioned earlier. Look at Clarity. Look at Microsoft Clarity, for example. Come to us with, here are macro, micro measures, what our success measures are for effective comms. Please go check out Clarity, because they are responsible for that, to knowing, what it can do and can't do. And then come back with a proposal. There's different ways of attacking this, but I'm sorry, I just had to make that one comment, because it's, in my experience, it's proven to be the most productive conversation about measurement. Any other questions? All right, panel, and thank you very much. All right, what a fun way to end the day. As I'm couple sentences of comments, anybody have any more ideas to put into the raffle? And we're gonna do a end of day 2, technically, raffle. Anybody have any? The half card thing? Is there any more of those half card things? Yep, got one here, got 2 here. Yeah. Any others? Oh, we got gosh, a lot of them. Very cool. Okay, I'm gonna come back here. Any others? Got one coming in. Oh, you want to do the Lego set? Yeah, let's just do it. It's a good time. All right, what do we have? Monkey Palace. Oh, I get that. I get it. Okay. Daryl. He had to step out for the day. Have to be present. That's actually one of our rules. Okay, it's officially a rule now. I did not mention it earlier. It's a rule. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Yeah. Lauren. You. Any others? Oh, we got a couple to collect. Okay. Making you write really fast. Yeah. And what's the prize for this one? Right. Oops.
You want another one? Love. You accumulate more often.
All right, you wanna do it? Yeah, go for it. So what's this for? All the prizes? No. There we go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay, want to do another one? Or wait till tomorrow? We'll do one more and then we'll call it. Oh. Ooh, that's where your money really goes, right? It's a $40,000 Dave & Buster's gift card. You guys got me on the reference? in a bit, one more agenda note. Ben kind of touched on it. Because of the switcheroo on the agenda, we are going to do a bonus session in the middle tomorrow morning. Ben's going to share just a little bit more kind of framing the conversation around AI applications for internal comms. And then we're going to have a little bit of a chat kind of walking through the different stages of maturity that that comms functions are kind of moving through right now in the spirit of using technology. It's going to be a lot of fun. With that, have a wonderful evening.